welcome to the latest episode of the Dram show with me, Chris Goodrum. Right, okay, this evening, I fancy a dram. It's been a long day at work, it's been a long week. What do I fancy a dram of? I fancy a bourbon. It's been a while since I've done a bourbon tasting, I thought, why not? Let's share my thoughts with you with regards to the 4 bourbons that I've selected this evening. No need for any waffle, so I'll just introduce the lineup then. Right, okay, so what have I got for you this evening? Right, so the first one is a relatively newish bottling. This was released, I believe, in 2012. The Jim Beam Devil's Cut. Great name. The whole premise of this particular bottling is that the liquid that's left in the casks after they've been emptied is well, because the whiskey that evaporates when it's being aged is called the angel share. They've decided to call the amount that's left in the barrel the Devil's Cut. And what they've done is essentially taken the barrels, filled them with water. I can't remember how many litres, but filled it with water, shook it about for half an hour, and drained the water out. I thought, well, yeah, okay, that's interesting. What do they do with it then? Redistill it? Something hoopy, something amazing like that? No. What they do is they just use it to cut, standard Jim Beam down to the bottling ABV, which I believe in this is 90% proof, or otherwise known as 45%. So it'll be interesting to see what that tastes like. I assume it's going to have more wood character than the sort of standard Jim Beam, but we'll see what happens with that one. This, not left in this one, it has to be said, is the Evan Williams 2002. Now, if you cast your mind back to one of my previous episodes of the show on bourbon, I tasted the 2001, which I didn't think was particularly great. So let's hope Evan Williams is back to its usual self with this bottling. And finally, we've got these two bottlings of Wild Turkey. We have the 101, which is 101% proof, otherwise known as 50.5 ABV. This originally was bottled as an 8-year-old, which is a nice 8-year-old. Yeah, had some sort of maturity to it. But this is now the follow-up bottling, and they've done essentially what Jim Beam did with the Jim Beam Black. That used to be an 8-year-old spirit in that bottle, and it's now been dropped to 6 years old. When I tasted it, I thought, is this going to make it, a bit rubbish? But no, I thought the Jim Beam Black was still very, very good. So it'll be interesting to see how. Admittedly, I don't have a sample of the old 8-year-old, so you'll just have to take my word for what we find on it. And this is the 12-year-old, which again is bottled at 101 proof, otherwise known, like I said, 50.5 ABV. So, right, I guess it's time to tackle the Devil's Cut then. Right, okay, so let's see what the nose gives us then, shall we? God, it's really, really sweet. Lots of sweet oak, sweet fat corn, really almost confected. Little bit of sort of, orange sweets. A little bit of rye, just nipping. My first impressions are that it is very, very sweet. As you know, I'm sort of more of a fan of rye, and I like a sort of a fairly high rye content bourbon. I find that spiciness just kind of balances what can be the fat corn, shall we say. So but it's pleasant. It's got a little bit of wood spice, but it is really sweet, very, very sweet. A little bit of violets, a little bit of dunnage, but yeah, sweet. Oh, yeah. Blast. That bitters, a lot of bitter oak. Yes, there's some slightly bitter dark chocolate, a little bit of rye, but it's bitter oak. There's a bit of caramelly corn, slightly burnt toffee corn maybe on the finish, but it's just sort of just a mouthful of bitter oak really at the end of the day. So yeah, bitter, very, very. Right, okay, so on to the Evan Williams. This particular bottling, like I said, is the 2002, which was distilled on the 4th of the 8th, or the 8th of the 4th in actual fact, because the Americans write things around the wrong way, don't they? And it was bottled on the 16th of the 11th, 2011, barrel number 23 apparently, so let's see what this nose is like then, shall we? That's nice. That's better. More rye, more of that sort of earthy, almost salty intensity. A real nip, a little bit of pepper, a little bit of rose petal mar. More whiskey character. Just like Evan Williams, should be. A little bit of corn, but that rye nip is absolutely gorgeous, really nice. A little bit of almost perfumed sort of honeyed barley as well, which is quite interesting. Like I said, this is a lot more like a whiskey nose. The oak is very, very subservient. The oak is definitely in the background of all of this, and it certainly lets the spirit come out quite nicely. So, nice nose. Oh. That is lovely. Spicy, peppery rye, all set against this sort of lovely polished wood background. Again, a little bit of corn, which is giving it, fleshing it out a little bit, but that's very clean, very crisp, slightly earthy, and like I said, that rye intensity is absolutely gorgeous. Really long. Little bit of chocolate maybe on the finish, as the oak does slightly bitter, but it's certainly got a lightly honeyed, rich character, which does kind of counterbalance that bittering to a certain extent. So, oh yeah, that's nice. That's nice to see the Evan Williams is back to its usual high standards. So, yeah, really good. Right, okay, on to the Wild Turkey then, from the Wild Turkey Distilling Company. So let's see what this nose gives us then, shall we? Very subtle, but quite lively. Again, it's got a freshness, probably fresher than the old 8-year-old. It's probably like Jim Beam, I imagine. It's now around about a sort of a 6-year-old spirit in this. A lot of that youthful rose petally Mar character. Little bit of orange, touch of violets, some lovely dusty spice. Yeah, that's nice. That's a really appealing nose. Quite oily now. He says, throwing it all over the place. But yeah, definitely youthful, definitely crisp. Yeah, that's good. That's a really enjoyable nose. Oh, yeah. Toasted corn, slight sort of popcorny character. So slightly different to the nose in that the corn is sort of leading off quite nicely. A little bit of rose petal Mar, a little bit of rye, a little bit of bittering oak. It's quite mouth-filling. Again, like I said, it's young. It's quite fresh, quite vibrant. And obviously that alcohol content is adding to the vibrancy. But yeah, that's a lovely one. I mean, it's not particularly expensive. It's about 30 odd quid, and yeah, I think that's really good value for money. So yeah. Right, okay, and finally let's have a look at the 12-year-old. Let's see what this nose has got. Oh, that's lovely. Really deep, wonderfully mature, licorice, coffee, dark chocolate, a little bit of treacle. It's a big nose. Hint of the spirit coming through, with a slight sort of herbally high-toned note. Gentle, slightly peppery rye. Very lovely. Touch of earth. A little bit of marzipan, possibly. This is a really complex nose. This shows that sort of wild turkey ages absolutely amazingly well. Wonderfully dusty spices. It's mellow. Oh, that's just such a beautiful nose. Getting some of the corn coming through now. So the aroma's quite fattening up quite a bit, but that's really harmonious. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's got a big rye kick. Starts off with some mature wood notes, coffee, hickory, licorice, then this big chunk of spicy rye hits the palate. Oh yes, that's good. That's really long. A little bit of rose petal Mar, a little bit of corn, but a lot of rye, and that's really intense. Yeah, it's quite woody, but the bitterness is very soft. The tannins are very soft. It's really mouth-filling. It's generous. I mean that's about sort of 50 odd quid, and well, you know, that is certainly worth it. That is absolutely gorgeous. It's just sublime. Right, okay, so let's sum these up then, shall we? The Devil's Cut. Yeah, it's not really my cup of tea, it has to be said. It's a bit over oaked. It's really sweet. I'm sure that will appeal to quite a few people that like sort of their sweet bourbons. But for me, just kind of lacked the intensity. It was all a bit just want some more rye. A bit more punch, a bit more intensity. It's all a bit sort of soft and flabby. Evan Williams, well, it's nice to see that back to its usual high standards. Obviously the 2001 vintage was an aberration. Again, that the rye is fairly prominent in that, and it's one of these bourbons that's just not overly oaked. It's has more of a sort of a whiskey kind of character, and the spirit is just sort of allowed to sort of come out, and you get all this wonderful character from that without sort of being blanketed by oak. So yeah, absolutely gorgeous. That's really nice. Wild Turkey, yeah, I like that. I think that's a really nice bottling, the 101. Obviously, not being 8 years old anymore, it's not quite as mature as what it used to taste. But I think it kind of makes up for that sort of loss of maturity with a real youthful intensity. It's really well balanced, and I think sort of value for money. I think that's pretty good. So I think that's definitely worth it. And the 12-year-old, well, what can you say? I mean, that was superbly good. I mean, okay, it's probably not quite in the stellar league of things like Eagle Rare 17, George T. Stagg, that kind of stuff, but I think sort of for 50 odd quid, it's certainly quality wise is up there with things like Jack Daniel's Single Barrel, for example, or sort of George Dickel, or High West Double Rye, things like that. So I think that is absolutely gorgeous, a really, really nice bourbon. So definitely worth it. So apart from obviously the Devil's Cut, which I'm not going to stock, funnily enough, all three of these bottlings are currently available on the website www.gauntleys.com should you wish to purchase a bottle, and I sincerely hope that you do, because I think if you love your good bourbons, then certainly these three fall into that category of good bourbons. Not all the tasting notes are on my WordPress blog, because the Wild Turkeys and the Devil's Cut are fairly new to me, it has to be said, so they're not quite there yet, but obviously you can check out all my other bourbon related tasting notes and other whiskey tasting notes as well. Just finally, just a brief mention about the forthcoming whiskey newsletter. It's almost done. I'm almost at the end of it. It's taken its time to write, but hopefully if I can crack on with it next week, that will be finished by next week and emailed out. So like I said in the last episode, if you're not on the mailing list as yet and would like to be, then just drop me a line, either on YouTube or to use the contact page on Gauntleys website. All that's left to say is I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope this will encourage you to take a look at one or two of these rather interesting bourbons, and all that's left to say is good dramming and good evening.